Commander Rene Holt moved quickly down the narrow steel corridor of the diplomatic cruiser Alethea, his boots striking the metal floor in fast, sharp steps. Red emergency lights flashed above him, washing everything in a warning glow. The ship shook again, harder this time, as if something huge had slammed into its side. It had. The Vosthalar dreadnought was firing again. He tapped the comm device on his wrist. "Bridge status?" Static answered him first. Then a voice broke through, panicked, breathless. "Commander, boarding craft incoming! They're cutting through the docking ring!" Another explosion cut the voice off, leaving only silence. Holt didn't slow down. He already knew the situation was bad. He had seen too many battles, and he recognized the feeling, the air growing hot from plasma burns, the floor vibrating from weapon hits, the lights flickering because the reactors were overworked. The Vosthalar were not here to negotiate. They were here to take one person. Envoy Saris Valen. She was the reason the Alethea existed. She was the reason half the galaxy watched this mission. And she was the reason the Voss had attacked. Holt finally reached the diplomatic wing. Smoke drifted in the hall, rising in thin gray ribbons that curled around his face. It smelled like melted plastic and hot wires. Emergency doors had sealed halfway, stuck in place from the damage. He grabbed the edge of the nearest door, pushed with all his strength, and forced it open enough to slip through. Behind him, the ship creaked like a wounded animal. Saris was standing in the center of the hall, clutching a data tablet. Her pale silver skin caught the red light, making her look like a statue carved from moonlight. Her long dark hair was tied back in a diplomatic braid, though pieces had fallen loose around her face. She looked calm. Too calm. "Envoy Valen," Holt said. "We need to move. Now." Saris blinked once, slowly, as if waking from deep thought. "I heard the impacts," she said in her smooth, quiet voice. "Are the Voss here for me?" "They are," Holt answered. "And they're not going to stop. We have to get you to a secure room." She held his gaze. There was fear behind her eyes, but not panic. "Very well, Commander. Lead the way." He didn't waste another second. He grabbed her arm, not roughly, but firmly enough to make her understand there was no time. Together they ran. They passed broken screens, flickering lights, and a fallen service robot sparking weakly on the floor. The ship groaned again as another hit slammed the hull. Saris stumbled, grabbing Holt's shoulder for balance. Holt didn't slow. "Stay close." "I am trying," she replied, breathless now. He reached a reinforced door at the end of the corridor, a square of heavy black metal with deep locking bolts. It was plain and unmarked. Most on the ship didn't even know it existed. Humans had a habit of building secret last rooms into their ships. They didn't brag about them. They just made sure they were there. Holt hit the access panel. The door slid open with a low rumble. "Inside," he ordered. Saris stepped in first. Holt followed and hit the internal control. The door slammed shut. All 6 steel bolts locked in place with a deep, final thud. Then silence. Only the soft hum of the room's life support systems remained. Saris turned toward him. "You locked it," she said quietly. "Yes," Holt replied. She didn't ask why. She didn't tell him to stop. She only looked around the room slowly, studying every detail. The safe room was larger than she expected. It had dark gray walls reinforced with layered alloys, a console built into the far side, a small medical unit, and emergency supplies stacked neatly on shelves. Soft blue lights glowed along the ceiling, giving the space an almost peaceful atmosphere, if someone ignored the distant echo of explosions through the hull. Saris walked to the center of the room and took a slow breath. "This is human technology," she said softly, tracing her fingers along the console. "Simple, practical, strong. You built this knowing someone might someday try to board your ship." "We build for the worst, so we can survive it," Holt said. A heavy vibration rolled through the floor. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Saris turned back to him. Commander, tell me the truth. Am I the reason the Voss are attacking? Holt hesitated only a moment. He didn't believe in lying to allies, even diplomatic ones. Yes, they want you alive. Alive? Saris repeated. Why? That's what I'm trying to figure out. She studied him closely. Most species found humans difficult to read, but Holt's face was clear, focused, ready, but not cruel. She had heard many things about humans, that they were stubborn, emotional, reckless, always moving too fast. But right now, Holt looked steady enough to hold the entire ship together with his bare hands. She moved closer to him. What do you know? Holt tapped the command console, pulling up encrypted data. We intercepted a Voss signal 2 hours before they attacked. It mentioned you. Saris frowned. Me? I have never met a Voss personally. You don't have to, Holt said. Your species has something they want. She shook her head. Diplomatic knowledge? Political leverage? Something biological. Saris froze. Holt watched her shoulders stiffen. I don't know the details, he said gently, but I saw enough to get you in here. The Voss aren't trying to destroy this ship. They're trying to cut through it like a shell so they can extract you. Saris lowered her head. Fear flickered across her face for the first time. My people said nothing about this, she whispered. They may not know, Holt replied. Or someone hid it from them. The floor trembled again as the Voss boarding craft latched onto the hull. A distant drilling sound began, a deep, vibrating whine that made Saris's skin crawl. They're close, she whispered. Yes, Holt said, but this door can hold. It's built from layered Titan steel and kinetic absorbent plating. They won't get through fast. Saris wrapped her arms around herself. And after they break through? Then I stop them. She looked up sharply. Alone? I've done worse with less. Saris stared at him for a long moment. Humans are strange, she said softly. Most species fear the Voss, but you speak as if they are only an inconvenience. Holt shrugged. Fear doesn't help anyone. Another jolt shook the safe room. This time the lights flickered. Saris flinched. Holt stepped beside her, steadying her with a hand on her arm. Hey, he said calmly. Look at me. She did. You're safe in here. Nothing gets through this door without going through me first. Saris's heartbeat slowed slightly. Holt's voice was simple, steady, and warm, not comforting in a soft way, but in a solid, unmoving way, like a wall she could lean on. You locked the door, she said again, almost in a whisper. I did, Holt replied. I needed to keep you alive. She studied him. This strange human with sharp eyes and a calm voice in a burning ship, and something in her chest eased. She didn't ask him to unlock the door. She didn't argue, complain, or demand control. She simply nodded. Then I trust you, Commander. A heavy bang slammed against the outer hull. The drills grew louder. Holt glanced at the door, then at Saris. Part of this room's system is still loading. It's going to show us something important. Show us what? She asked. Why the Voss want you? The console beeped. A file blinked open, encrypted, classified, and very old. Saris stepped closer. Her eyes widened as symbols appeared on the screen. Symbols from her own language, but from a dialect she barely recognized. What is this? She whispered. Your past, Holt said. Another explosion rocked the ship. Saris looked at the screen, and life as she knew it began to break open. The safe room shook again, harder than before. Dust drifted from the ceiling in tiny clouds. Saris held onto the console to steady herself, while the hum of drilling outside grew louder. The Voss were working fast, too fast. But right now, Saris's attention was locked on the glowing symbols on the screen in front of her, symbols from her own people, but older than any she had seen in her lifetime. She touched the screen gently. These markings. They belong to the first archives, she whispered. This language is thousands of years old. My people stopped using it long before we formed our first alliance. Holt crossed his arms. And yet the Voss are looking for someone who carries this in their DNA. Saris turned toward him sharply. DNA? What do you mean? Holt tapped the screen again. The file shifted, revealing diagrams, scans of alien genetic patterns, notes from human intelligence teams, and fragments of intercepted Voss transmissions. Saris felt her throat tighten. Commander, these look like medical files. They are, Holt said. Someone studied your genome centuries ago. A lot of species did. Humans just happen to have the most detailed copy. Saris stepped back, stunned. How long have you known? Me? Holt shook his head. 2 hours. Not enough time to understand everything, but enough to know the Voss want you for something specific. She stared at the symbols again, her hands trembling. My people always believed the first archives only contained stories, myths, legends about the time before time. Well, Holt said quietly, something in those myths is real. Saris bit her lip. Her heart was pounding too fast. She felt like the room was shrinking around her. Her whole life, she had been told her species was peaceful, diplomatic, gentle. They were known for negotiation, not war. They believed in healing, not fighting. But the old language on the screen, those symbols belonged to a forgotten era, a time full of conflict and secrets. What did the Voss say about me? She asked softly. Holt studied her face for a moment, then answered honestly. They said you are a key. A key to what? We don't know yet. Saris shook her head, overwhelmed. This is impossible. My family is ordinary. I am ordinary. I was chosen for diplomacy because I studied languages, not because of anything special in my blood. Holt's voice softened. Saris, you don't have to be afraid. Whatever's happening, you're not facing it alone. Before she could respond, the drilling noise suddenly stopped. The silence was sharp, almost painful. Saris froze. Why did they stop? Holt stepped toward the door, listening. They're repositioning their gear. That means they found a weak point in the hull. They're preparing a breach. Her breath caught. Holt turned back to her. Despite the danger, his expression remained calm, focused, steady, a living anchor in the middle of chaos. Saris, we don't have much time, he said. We need to figure out what the Voss want before they get through that door. She nodded, forcing herself to breathe slowly. Then let's keep reading. Holt reopened the file. More data scrolled down. Old reports, fragments of messages, pieces of a puzzle that had never been solved. One note caught Saris's attention. Subject line, the Luma pulse. Her eyes widened. This is impossible. What is it? Holt asked. The Luma pulse, she explained, pointing to the text, is a myth, a story told to children. It says that long ago, there were special individuals who could emit a kind of energy, a light that could protect life or stop harm. Like a weapon? Holt asked. Saris shook her head quickly. No, more like a shield, a defense. But it's just a story. There was never proof. Holt raised an eyebrow. The Voss seem to think it's real. And connected to me? Saris whispered. That makes no sense. Holt leaned over her shoulder, reading the next line. Activation requires emotional trigger. Saris felt the blood drain from her face. Commander, this says the pulse only activates under extreme stress. Holt's jaw tightened. And the Voss are masters at creating stress. Saris wrapped her arms around herself. But why me? There are billions of my people. Why would they think I have this? Before Holt could answer, the console beeped again. A new window opened, a digital scan of Ceres. Her heartbeat stopped for a moment. Commander, this is my DNA, she whispered. How do you have this? It's taken from your diplomatic clearance profile, Holt explained. Standard practice, nothing unusual. But the scan was glowing. One section was highlighted. A pattern, curved lines woven together like a tiny star. Holt stared. What does that symbol mean? Saris swallowed hard. It's a mark, a genetic echo. All ancient Luma-bearers were said to carry one. So it's real, Holt said quietly. Saris stumbled back from the console. No, it can't be. I would have known. My family would have known. Maybe they didn't, Holt said gently. Maybe it's been hidden for centuries. She shook her head, fighting panic. This is too much. I don't want to be some mythical thing. I just wanted to help build peace. Holt stepped closer. Saris. She lifted her eyes to him. You are still who you were 5 minutes ago, he said. Nothing changed except what you understand. You're still a diplomat. You're still you. This data doesn't change your heart. She blinked hard, trying not to cry. Not from fear, just from the heavy weight of so many unknowns suddenly pressing down on her. Commander, she whispered. What do I do? Holt rested his hand on her shoulder. Right now, you breathe, and you trust that we'll figure this out. Another heavy thud shook the door. Saris jumped. This time, Holt grabbed her arm before she could lose her balance. It's okay, he said gently. They still can't get in. This door is tougher than anything they have. He didn't sound afraid. He didn't even sound worried. He sounded like someone who had decided without question that he would protect her. Saris took a slow breath. You locked the door to save me? Yes. And you're not going to open it. Not unless we choose to, Holt replied. Through the thick walls, they heard the Voss soldiers moving. Heavy steps, metallic equipment, low rumbling voices in a language that sounded like grinding stone. They're trying to force an opening near the panel, Holt said. Clever but predictable. Saris gave a small, shaky smile. You don't seem very impressed by them. I've seen what humans can do, Holt said. Compared to that, the Voss don't scare me. Saris looked at him, really looked, and realized something. Humans talked a lot about courage, but Holt didn't talk. He simply was courageous. She stepped closer to the console again. We need more information. If I truly carry this Luma Pulse ability, if it's real, then we must understand how it works. Holt nodded. Agreed. They searched through the files. More myths, more fragments, more incomplete research, no clear instructions. But one line stood out. The pulse activates to protect others, not oneself. Saris's eyes softened. That sounds like my people. And it sounds like you, Holt added. Another blast hit the safe room wall, closer this time. Saris's heart jumped. Holt didn't flinch. We'll handle them, one step at a time. A moment passed. A quiet moment amid all the chaos, where Saris realized something she had not expected. She trusted him completely, even though she had known him for only hours, even though her entire world had changed in minutes, even though danger was clawing at their door. Holt was calm. Holt was steady. Holt was human. Commander, she said quietly, if the Voss want to force this pulse out of me, what will happen when they breach the door? Holt looked at her gently. Then I stay between you and them, and I won't let anything happen to you. Saris nodded slowly, and she didn't ask him to stop. The safe room vibrated again as something heavy slammed against the outer corridor. Saris felt the pulse of each impact travel through the floor and up her legs. The Voss were closer now, too close. She could almost imagine their heavy armored bodies gathering outside the sealed door, planning their next move. Holt stepped in front of her without thinking, positioning himself between Saris and the door. His posture was calm, steady, almost casual. But Saris could tell he was listening to every sound with sharp focus. What are they doing now? She whispered. Holt tilted his head slightly. preparing a multi-point breach. They're trying to melt the edges of the frame. It's slow, but not slow enough. Saris swallowed. Fear curled in her stomach again, but she forced herself to stand straight. "Commander, how long until they get through?" "Maybe 20 minutes, Holt said. "Maybe less." Saris felt her breath catch. "And then?" Holt turned toward her, eyes steady. "Then we confront them. Together." She blinked. "Together? Commander, I don't even know how to fight." "You don't need to fight," Holt said simply. "You only need to be yourself." "That doesn't make sense," she whispered. "I think it does." Holt placed one hand on the console and pulled up the earlier file again. The glowing diagram of her strange genetic mark appeared on the screen. "The Lumapulse is not a weapon, it's a defense. It activates to protect someone else." Saris stared at the symbol. Those delicate curved lines shaped like a tiny star. Something about it stirred inside her, like a gentle warmth in the center of her chest. "But I don't know how to control it," she said softly. Holt shook his head. "You don't need to control it. You just need to want to protect." "And you?" Saris asked, voice quiet but steady. "What about your safety?" Holt gave a small half-smile. "Humans don't usually think about themselves first. It's a habit." Saris had learned many things about humans during her diplomatic training, that they were unpredictable, emotional, quick to act. But she had never understood their courage until now. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was steady. And in this moment, she felt a strange calm settle inside her. If Holt wasn't afraid, then she didn't have to be either. The drilling sound started again, louder this time, followed by a sharp metallic crack. Saris gasped, stepping back. "Did they break something?" "Outer layer only," Holt said. "Still a long way to go." Saris moved closer to him. "Commander, tell me something. Why do you keep standing in front of me, even when we're in a sealed room?" Holt looked down at her with a simple answer. "Because that's what humans do. We put ourselves between danger and the people we're protecting." Saris felt a warm twist in her chest. Not romantic, just human. A feeling she didn't quite have words for. She turned toward the console again, searching the files for anything useful. There must be more information, something that explains how the pulse works, or how it activates, or... But the files were incomplete. Most of the data had been corrupted over centuries, fragments of old reports, pieces of myths, half-finished research, nothing clear enough to guide them. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I can't find anything." "Don't apologize," Holt said. "We'll figure it out another way." "How?" she asked. Holt glanced at the door as a new burst of sparks scattered across the floor. "By surviving long enough to try." Saris forced herself to take a deep breath. The air tasted metallic, filled with the faint scent of heated metal from the corridor. "Commander, what if the Voss don't want to hurt me?" she asked suddenly. "What if they want to use the pulse for something else?" Holt turned toward her fully. "Saris, you don't need to make excuses for them." "But, no." Holt shook his head gently. "Everything we know tells us the Voss are here to force a reaction. They want to control something that shouldn't be controlled, and that puts you in danger, no matter how they justify it." Saris looked down, her hands twisting together. I don't want to be the reason anyone gets hurt." Holt stepped closer. "You're not the reason. The Voss chose this, not you." Saris slowly nodded. A heavy thud hit the door. Both of them looked up. This time, the impact left a faint dent along the upper hinge, barely visible but real. Saris's heart dropped. "They're getting closer." "Yes," Holt said. "But so are we." She frowned. "What do you mean?" Holt moved to a panel on the left side of the room. He pulled it open, revealing a small emergency locker. Inside were compact defensive shields, med patches, and 2 emergency helmets. Saris blinked. "You planned for this?" "I planned for everything." Holt handed her one of the helmets. "Put this on. It will protect you from smoke and pressure changes." She took it, hands shaking. "What about you?" "I have mine." He fitted his helmet on his belt. Saris hesitated. "Commander, what happens when the door opens?" Holt took a slow breath, thinking. Then he spoke carefully. "When they breach, I'll stand in front. I'll hold them off as long as I can, and if the pulse activates, it activates. If it doesn't, then we find another way." Saris felt her heart clench. "You keep talking like you are alone in this." Holt shook his head. "No, I'm talking like I know my job, and my job is keeping you safe." Saris stepped closer, lowering her voice. "And maybe my job is helping you survive, too." Holt looked slightly surprised, but only for a second. Then he nodded slowly, with quiet respect. Another explosion rocked the safe room. This time, a bright line of molten metal appeared along the right edge of the door. Saris gasped. "They're cutting through!" Holt grabbed her arm. "Stay behind me!" She nodded automatically, but as she stood there watching the glowing cut widen, something unusual happened inside her. The warmth in her chest grew stronger, spread slowly through her ribs, into her arms, into her throat. It wasn't painful. It wasn't frightening. It felt like light, soft, gentle, warm light. "Commander," she whispered shakily. "Something is happening." Holt turned instantly. "Are you hurt?" "No," Saris said quickly. "It's not pain, it's something else." Her chest glowed faintly through the fabric of her clothing, soft white pulses like a heartbeat of light. Holt's eyes widened. "Saris, I don't know how to stop it," she whispered. "Don't stop it," Holt said. "Let it happen. We might need it." The light brightened. Saris pressed her hands over her heart, feeling her skin grow warm under her palms. "It's reacting to the danger, to them being near the door." Holt nodded slowly. "It's trying to protect." The glow intensified, spreading to her shoulders. It was still faint, still small, but it was real. The Luma pulse, no longer a myth. Another heavy slam hit the door. This time, the metal bent inward slightly, like a giant hand pressing against it. Saris cried out softly. Holt moved instantly, stepping in front of her, but Saris grabbed his arm. "Wait!" Holt paused. "Saris, you said the pulse activates to protect someone else," she said quickly. What if it needs you?" Holt stared at her. "Saris, we don't know if—" "But it activated when you stood in front of me," she said. "Maybe that's the trigger. Maybe you are the reason." Holt didn't know what to say. For the first time since the attack began, he had no answer. The door shook again. A small, glowing crack widened along the edge. Holt raised his shield. "Saris, stand back." Saris stepped forward instead. "Holt," she said quietly, "let me try." He turned sharply. "Try what?" "To protect you." The soft, white light around her brightened, glowing gently through the safe room. Holt stared at her for a long moment, caught between duty and trust. Finally, he nodded once. "Okay," he said. "Then we do this together." Saris stepped beside him, the light steady around her, and they waited. For the moment, the door would open. The glowing crack along the door became brighter, spreading like a line of fire across the metal surface. Saris and Holt could hear the Voss soldiers outside adjusting their tools, speaking in low metallic growls, confident that the breach would open soon. Holt braced his feet apart, raising his compact shield and preparing for impact. The blue glow of the shield formed a protective arc in front of him. His breathing was steady, calm, as if he had done this 1,000 times before. Saris stood beside him, both hands pressed over her chest as the strange, warm light continued to spread through her body. It was brighter than before. Still gentle, still soft, but now it filled the space around her like calm waves. The Luma pulse. The myth. The power she never believed she had. And it was growing. "Holt," she whispered, voice trembling but steady. "Are you ready?" He didn't look at her. His eyes stayed fixed on the weakening door. "I'm always ready," he said softly. "But what matters is, are you ready?" Saris looked down at her glowing hands. The warmth inside her was not frightening anymore. It felt right, like something she was always meant to hold but never knew. She nodded. "Yes." Holt gave a small smile, just enough to reach his eyes. "Then, whatever happens next, we handle it together." Before Saris could answer, a loud hiss burst through the air. The Voss had cut the lock completely. The metal around the door turned white-hot, and a cloud of smoke pushed into the safe room. Saris' mouth went dry. "They're coming." Holt tightened his grip on his shield. "Stay behind me. Let the pulse grow, but don't force it. Just let the feeling guide you." The door shuddered once, twice. And then, with a deafening metallic scream, the entire center panel crashed inward. A massive armored Voss soldier stepped through the smoke. His armor was dark silver, engraved with sharp symbols. His helmet glowed with red lines like burning cracks. Two more soldiers followed behind him, each holding strange energy weapons aimed directly at Holt and Saris. The first Voss raised a heavy gauntlet pointing at Saris. "Target confirmed," a deep mechanical voice growled. "Extract the key." Saris stumbled back, fear gripping her, but Holt didn't move. He stepped forward instead, shield raised between Saris and the giant soldier. "You'll have to go through me," he said. The Voss leader stared at him for a long moment. Then, with a rumbling sound, almost like dark laughter, he swung his arm at Holt. Holt blocked the strike with his shield. The impact was enormous, like being hit by a falling steel beam. The force pushed Holt back 2 steps, boots scraping the floor, but he didn't fall. He didn't break. He held the line. Saris gasped. "Holt! I'm fine!" he shouted. "Stay back!" But the Voss were not stopping. One soldier aimed his weapon and fired a bright bolt of energy at Holt. The shield caught most of it, but Holt winced as the heat surged through his arm. Saris felt panic rise in her chest. This wasn't a fair fight. Holt was strong, but he was only human. Then something inside her shifted. The soft light in her chest swelled suddenly, like a warm sun rising inside her. "Holt," she whispered. "Step left." He moved instantly, trusting her without question. The next bolt of energy shot past him and hit the floor, leaving a melted crater where he had just been standing. Saris stepped forward now, no longer hiding behind him. The Voss leader growled. "Do not damage the key," he ordered. "She must be taken alive." Saris raised her glowing hands. Her entire body hummed like it was filling with hidden potential. "I am not your key," she said, her voice quiet but firm. Holt glanced back at her. "Saris, focus on the feeling. Let it guide." But Saris didn't need instruction anymore. The light expanded from her chest, circling around her like a shimmering shield of soft white energy. It moved gently, like floating water, but Holt could feel its strength from where he stood. The Voss soldiers aimed again. Holt shouted, "Saris, now!" The Voss fired. 3 bright bolts of energy shot toward them. Saris raised her hands, and the pulse reacted. A ring of white light burst outward, fast and wide. It met the incoming energy bolts and swallowed them like drops of water falling into a lake. The bolts vanished instantly, their energy dissolving into the glowing air around Saris. The Voss soldiers froze. Confusion rippled through them. Saris stepped forward, eyes wide in awe at what she had done. "Holt, I think I can protect us both." Holt smiled under his breath. "HFY," he whispered quietly. "I knew it." The Voss leader roared in frustration and charged forward, raising a massive blade-like arm. "Saris, shield!" Holt shouted. Saris closed her eyes and focused, not on fear, not on anger, but on the strong desire to protect Holt. The warmth in her chest pulsed outward, growing brighter, wider, stronger. The Voss blade swung down. Boom! The blade met the glowing shield of light and bounced back as if striking solid stone. The force of the rebound slammed the Voss soldier into the opposite wall. The entire safe room shook. Holt blinked in amazement. "You just sent him flying." Saris breathed hard, stunned. I didn't try to hurt him." "You didn't," Holt said. "You protected us." "The pulse did the rest." The remaining two Voss hesitated now, clearly unsure. They had expected an easy extraction, not a human who refused to fall, and not a glowing diplomat who could block their strongest weapons. The leader staggered to his feet, growling, but there was fear now in the sound. Saris took another step forward. Her glow was steady now, strong but soft, like a living shield around her. She lifted her voice, speaking clearly and without fear. "I am not your key. I am not your weapon, and I will not go with you." The Voss leader raised his arm again, preparing another attack. Holt braced himself. Saris lifted both hands. The pulse surged. A wave of white light burst from her body, expanding like a circle of pure calm. It swept across the safe room, touching every wall, every corner, and every Voss soldier. Where the wave touched the Voss, their armor sparked, their weapons shut down, and their limbs froze as if caught in invisible chains. Their red lights dimmed, their movements slowed. Then, crash. All three Voss collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Silence filled the room. The light around Saris slowly faded. She wobbled on her feet, exhausted, and Holt rushed to catch her before she fell. "Saris, are you okay?" She leaned against him, breathing hard but smiling weakly. I'm fine. Just really tired." Holt held her steady. "You did it. You activated the pulse." Saris let out a soft, breathless laugh. "I didn't mean to send them flying." "That was the best part," Holt said with a grin. She looked up at him. "We're safe." He nodded. "Because of you." She shook her head gently. "Because of us." Holt couldn't argue with that. Later, reinforcement teams from the Alethea finally arrived, securing the corridor and transporting the unconscious Voss back to their ship. The crisis was over. Saris and Holt stood together outside the repaired safe room, the air now calm and cool. Saris looked at him. "Thank you, Commander." Holt raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For locking the door," she said softly. "For keeping me safe. For believing in me before I believed in myself." Holt gave a small shrug. "You didn't ask me to stop?" Saris smiled. "No, I never would. Because in the end, the door wasn't locked to trap her. It was locked so humanity could stand, and so she could learn to shine together."